Hey superstars, back again with a second introduction to an archetype today. And this one is the opportunity for you to meet the networker connector archetype. So here she is here. The networker connector is the social butterfly or the social bee, whatever you want to call it, of the 12 Thrive Factor archetypes. She loves people. Doesn't necessarily mean she is an extrovert, but she loves people and loves spending time with people. She's that friend that you have that knows everybody and then all the everybody's that those everybody's know, right? She's the person that you'll go to when you need to know someone. And it's that the conversation goes like, I need her, or do you know? And your networker connector will go, yes, either I do or I don't, but I know someone who knows someone. Yeah, that's the kind of person that the networker connector is. She has a great love of meeting people. She has a gift for coming into a space, whether it be a virtual or an in-person space, and scanning the room. I always say she hovers like a dragonfly, being able to hover in time and space, see what's going on, see who's there, work out who she knows, work out who she recognizes, work out who she wants to meet. And she just has a gift for making introductions. So she sees the magic that can happen when she trusts her instincts and she makes an introduction to people, even if she hardly knows them. I remember being on the receiving end of the magic of a networker connector many years ago. I was probably in the first year or so of my business. I had just stepped out of my corporate role, which I did initially while I was getting my business up and running. And I was at a networking event. I didn't know anybody in the room. I think I vaguely sort of knew of a couple of women, but I'd not met them before. Feeling very shy. I'd come from a background where corporate networking is very different to small business networking. And this woman, I can't remember her name at all. I remember who she introduced me to. But she was just asking me questions and getting a sense of like who I was, what my business was, what I wanted out of the networking event. She wasn't even the woman who was hosting it, right? But she was just curious. She was just, which is networker connectors. I like to know people. And she vanished after a little bit of a chat, and I asked her about her business and those kinds of things, did all the polite kind of back and forth conversation. And within about 5-10 minutes, she appeared with this woman. And she said to me, I don't know what it is about the two of you, but I've just spoken to both of you tonight, met you for the first time, and you need to meet each other. Yeah. And we sort of looked at each other awkwardly. There's two strangers, and proceeded to have a conversation. And I ended up doing about 3.5 years of consulting work for that woman who became a very dear friend of mine. Yeah, because I had a skill set she was missing in her business. I had the time because I was new in my business to do some consulting work on the side, and it was a gift for both of us, and I'm so grateful for that. But that is the power of a networker connector. Now, with all this socializing, all this being out in the world connecting others, a networker connector is not always fabulous at being connected to herself. In fact, she can often find it very awkward or uncomfortable to be in her own presence. Now, I've got to remember I'm talking about the networker connector as an archetype all on its own, and she will have other archetypes that will influence that most definitely. So it's not that all networker connectors are disconnected from self, it's just that sometimes they can be, particularly if they've been burning candles at both ends and more, and attending all of the events, as said, both online and in person. Now, last year, as the world began to evolve, as we were all experiencing in different ways the effects of the pandemic, I noticed a really interesting dynamic with networker connectors. Initially, as events were being cancelled, in-person things were being changed, cancelled, rescheduled while we weren't sure what was going on, networker connectors went into a state of, I won't say panic, but there was a degree of panic because it's like, I'm not going to be able to see people. And they didn't know what it was going to be like being at home with the same people all the time because they love a variety of people in their world. And then as the world literally embraced Zoom, as business owners and businesswomen, we know about tools like Zoom and other online platforms, but a lot of the rest of the world didn't. And as that happened, networker connectors could see that they could still talk to people. They could, they couldn't leave their home necessarily, but they could get out and they could chat with people online and they could connect in a different kind of a way. I saw a rise in their enthusiasm, their excitement, and they were often the ones that were organizing the events and, bringing people together because that's what they do so beautifully. And then I saw an interesting thing where it's like they sort of peaked with that online aspect and then they were petering off very fast. Because networker connectors like real in-life connection. They can do the online stuff, but they don't love it. It doesn't nourish them and nurture them and excite them like in-person, real-life people do. As I said, they're not necessarily extroverts because they will have other influences of other archetypes, but they can be very extroverted when they're in a social space. Now, ways for networker connectors to connect with themselves is to work on or to do things where they feel grounded, where they feel a sense of self, where they're really honouring who they are and honouring the value of the network that they have. Networker connectors will, as I said right at the beginning of this, they will have so many people in their world come to them because of who they know. And they will freely make introductions, they will share contact details, they'll do all sorts of things. And when it comes to them needing some support or guidance or a connection for themselves, they can often find it very awkward to ask someone for information or to make a connection or make an introduction, just like they do. Even if that's someone who knows the person that they need to know or knows how to get them in contact with somebody that they really need to have some connection to. If that person is someone that they freely shared and connected and done all sorts of introductions with, they can still feel awkward about that. A networker connector has got a huge lesson to learn in valuing her network and also being able to speak up and ask for the introductions to be made that she really, really desires and needs and wants, so that she can benefit from all of those as much as her network benefits from all of the magic she creates for them. Now, often there's an aspect from a business perspective for a networker connector where she could monetize the network that she's created, and not in a way where she's taking advantage of them, in a way that everybody can benefit. And I like to challenge networker connectors around this and to really get them to think about how they could benefit financially from all the time and energy and money that they've put into building, creating, nurturing a network that is of incredible value on so many different levels. So that's something, if you are a network connector, think about that. If you have had me have a conversation with you, you know what that's like. And it's because I do it because I want you to understand the power and the value of your network and to benefit from it as much as all the people in your world benefit. Now, occasionally networker connectors will find themselves in connections or in spaces where people will recognize the benefit, the value of their network, and may, unfortunately, try to take advantage of that. And a networker connector who's been taken advantage of and where someone hasn't respected the introductions that have been made, the connections that have been made, that they don't tend to cope so well with that. And that's fair enough. Yeah, it's a very disrespectful experience to be in. So I can understand too why network connectors are often very precious about their networks. They can go from one extreme of sharing abundantly and freely to then holding back and being uncertain about who they can trust and what they can do with that. But network connectors, you are here to connect the world together. Sometimes liberator engineers are considered to be networker connectors. I've often had people ask me if I'm a networker connector when they hear about that archetype. And the thing about liberator engineers is that we see the big picture or a puzzle and we understand all the moving parts that go into that. And we're about connecting things, and those things could include people. But for a networker connector, they are purely about connecting people. So there is a very significant difference between those two archetypes. So if you are a networker connector or you know a networker connector, feel free to add a comment, share stories, tell us what you love about that archetype, what you've learned about that archetype, how she shows up in your world. There's a lot of networker connectors who've literally started significant and successful, incredible, highly valued networking organizations or networking groups. They're just everywhere in such a beautiful way, both in the business world and outside in the big wide world as well. So, if you'd like to know more about the networker connector or any of the other Thrive Factor archetypes, then please reach out and ask. And if you don't yet know your archetypes, also ask about that too. We'd love to share those with you. Have a beautiful day.